sound has begun. Oh, here we are the one.
Welcome to the Louisa Project 2027, where we discuss education, entrepreneurship, and innovation. Today, we're going to be talking to author Hank Jirousek from Chicago. We're going to be discussing the Chicago public school systems and the issues going on there. And I guess that's it. Hank, welcome to the show.
Hey, how are you doing?
Doing good. How are you?
Great. I'm glad to be here.
Good. I'm glad you're here too. First of all, let's let you introduce yourself.
Well, I'm Hank, as you said. I'm a student at Chicago Public Schools in Illinois, and as anyone might have heard, I don't know if it's been making national news, but it really should be. Illinois, for the second year in a row, has failed to pass the state budget, and that too means that we don't have any sort of state funding for education. And so being in a public school, that means that my school district's going to have to be making some serious cuts across the board. So that's the big concern of mine that I've been dealing with and wrote about it in an article. But I'm a junior in high school. I write for the Progressive Army, and aside from that, pretty normal high schooler,
Aside from that. I just write for progressivearmy.com. It's okay. So the cat's out of the bag, folks. How old are you now, Hank?
I just turned 17 about a month ago.
Okay, so Hank is the boy wonder at the Progressive Army. He's a great writer. He's a really bright young man. I'm glad to have him on the show. All right, and it's always good to have somebody going through the education system, because usually I talk to people who are done or somehow otherwise involved in education, but it's good to talk to people who are in the education system. All right, all right, Hank, let's get rocking and rolling. Again, our subject is the plight of the Chicago public school systems. We're going to first of all we're going to ask our first question, which is, what made you write this article?
Why did I write this article?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I think everything becomes more important to you when you see it happen to you. It sounds selfish, but really, it's not even what's happened to my school that's been the most concerning to me. Chicago Public, I go to one of the magnet schools, one of the few magnet schools in the system. So I've actually had it better just because we're more prioritized and we have more resources. But I follow politics. It's a little harder to follow state politics, but just to see the absolute, just the BS that happens downstate in Springfield, our capital, and that's affecting students here, and just seeing the cuts that are being made across the board, whether it's one of the magnet schools or one of the neighborhood schools, and I see what a lot of these students are able to put out and do with the limited resources they have, and I just wonder why are they being limited and so much, and they could just really reach their full potential if they had opportunities that match their brilliance.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest thing, and then you just see, people like Bruce Rasner, our governor, who's really kind of a selfish a-hole, might I say. And I followed the 2014 election cycle when he got put into office, removing Pat Quinn, our former governor, and I just knew that it was going to get ugly, and sure enough, it has.
Okay. Yeah. I listened to what's the name of the podcast? The Professional Left with Drift Glass and Blue Gal. They're Illinois folk, and they often talk about they call him Governor Hedge Fund Bruce Rasner, which is interesting. All right, so give us a brief overview of the plight of the schools.
Well, you'd really have to start out by what CPS doesn't have already. We're in a system where Illinois gets 20% of its income taxes from or income and property taxes, I think, from Chicago. I think we're roughly 20% of the state population, so that makes sense. You know, we're paying 20% into the system, and then you'd think we'd get 20% back for you know, our public school funding, but that's not the case. Now we're only getting 15%. So already, before any of this other BS that's happening, we're already getting about 500 million less than the rest of the state of Illinois. So that's really limiting what we can do here. So and with it being that I think it's 86% of Chicago public school students are low income, you would think that if not getting the equal amount of funding as the rest of the state, they would need additional funding, you know, because to work on, you know, other students with families that aren't together, and you know, that families that can't provide meals, that sort of stuff. You would think that we would be getting more funding because of that to make up for that difference, but we're getting less than the rest of the state. So that's the biggest issue. We're a lot of the students are being ignored, and I see this at my school, but I know it's a whole lot worse at schools that aren't, you know, kind of the little gemstones of the system. You have classrooms where teachers don't have paper. You know, they have to scrimp on that sort of stuff. They you know, there's not like writing utensils available for students. There's you know, classes are, you know, aren't you know, full sized. We have some schools that have half, or that they're like half or a third full, like 33% capacity. Like those schools are like that, they're practically empty, and you just have resources low for students, and it's not conducive to making an education that will let them succeed in the competitive business world later.
Okay. All right. That's. Thank you for the overview. Yeah, it sounds. I read after reading your article, I was like, wow, that is patently unfair. At least get to the 20%. I mean, good God. I mean, it's one thing. It's okay. You get 20%, and that's not enough, and you have to argue from there. But to cut 5% off the bat, it's ridiculous.
Absolutely.
All right. Let's. So thus Bruce, as you said, Bruce Rasner, he's been governor for roughly 2 years, right? So what other wonderful things has he been doing since he's been in office?
Well, I mean his main I'd say that his what he's mainly been going after is making the state more pro-business, like you'd expect any other Republican governor to do. He's been trying to lower property taxes, and every other tax like Republicans often do while they're in office. But he's also been pushing for places like Chicago Public to become charter schools. You know, so they're privately owned. If no one knows what a charter school is, they're privately owned institutions that, you know, give more power over to the people that run them rather than the governing body or whatever that may be. So he's been pushing for that, and yeah, so those have been the big goals, and he's really been holding Illinois in a deadlock where we have majority, where we have the you know, the Senate and the House. We have the governing bodies are majority Democratic, but then we have a Republican governor, and so whatever comes to his desk, he vetoes. So that's why we have the situation where we had, I believe it was, we had a $15.7 billion funding bill for the state for the next year, and that was to cover all the costs of the state for this upcoming fiscal year, and that failed to pass because it went to his desk, and he said, I think he said something along the lines of no games, and I think what he defined as games in this bill that would have covered all our costs was giving funding to CPS, and it was mainly giving funding to CPS and not making the pro-business adjustments that he saw fit. So when we're trying to pass a budget here, we have a governor who just says nope, and he just cuts it off, and that's where we are now, 2 years down the road, and we still haven't had a budget, and that's putting us as the only state in the whole country that doesn't have one, and as a state that's had 4 governors put in jail, I think in the past 50 years, and 2 since I was born. That's not making our image look all that much better.
Yeah, that seems like that the governor's mansion is a pipeline to prison, but we talk about that.
Maybe we'll get him in prison. We don't know.
Yeah. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. But I wouldn't cry if he went. All right. All right. So let's tell us a little bit about the Chicago public school systems. I mean, overall, not just about. I mean, where do they stand? How, for instance, was there a time when they were really good, and what sort of decline are we looking at?
Well, I'm going to be talking mostly out of my own knowledge here.
That's fine.
I know that at one point, when I had gone into the system years earlier, that there was at least funding there, and that we didn't have all the budget issues that have really sprung up in the last 4 or 5 years or so, where it's really been. You have the Chicago Teachers Union protesting. You have the CPS going down to Springfield and complaining down there. It's at the very least it's gone from bad to worse. So I always saw that there was enough to go around, but then I also went to one of the better elementary schools too. So I don't want to say that it's ever been good in the Chicago public schools, because there's always been disparities between when you go place to place. As you just see in the larger as you see in just Chicago, there's disparities from place to place, and that reflects in the Chicago public schools too. So I think it's fair to say that it's never been good, but it's been a whole lot better. We had back in 2013, I think we had a Chicago teachers union. They went on strike, and so that they would get they'd get paid what they should have been, and that messed up a whole lot of schools and their year schedules, and the Chicago public just didn't have the money to do it and that's what they were fighting over. And now it looks like it might strike again this year, but it was seriously a possibility for a long time. Now we only have 2 weeks left in the school year, so I don't think a strike's going to happen now. I'm not gonna say anything for certain though, but so yeah. Teachers pensions haven't been being funded like they should be, and that's the biggest issue. And so CPS doesn't have the money to fund everything that they want to or should be, and we have the Chicago Teachers Union getting on them about that. And then we have CPS and Chicago Teachers Union going down to Springfield and asking, we need our money from somewhere, and we're not getting it. Give us our fair share. So I said that 86% of Chicago public students are low income, but that doesn't mean that they don't have as much potential as the other 14% or whatever that is. So it all comes down to the opportunities that are given. My school, I go to Lincoln Park High School. A magnet school, and it's does some of the best stuff in the city, and I think we have like 60% low income, and it's and the stuff that we're able to do because one, we're in a supportive neighborhood, two, because we're treated as this gem of Chicago public, and I think we are afforded a little bit more where we can be. That helps a lot too. And third, we have a reputation that goes way back, and that has been able to prevail in a lot of cases despite these issues. So, but what we've been able to accomplish, the students here, that go home, some of them, families that are in tatters, and I know that for a fact, and don't have parents that can't put food on the table. They're able to come to this school and they're able to succeed and get high grades and take AP level classes. And it's all because of funding that they're able to do that, and they're able to succeed because of that. This is a specific example. Our school, Wind Symphony, it's one of our band programs. It's going to the state. It's going to be representing the state next year as one of the best ensembles in the whole state. One of 6 that was chosen to represent the musical ability of all of Illinois' high schools. It's that sort of stuff, that we're able to do that despite a lack of funding. But the thing is that even though we're being shorthanded by CPS and Springfield, we're in an influential neighborhood on the north side of Chicago. We have a community that wants to and is able to come to the rescue at times, and give a little bit of money to even out the rough spots here and there. And we have a smart principal who's really been working his hardest to he has a reserve of money put to the side to even out those patches. But that's going to go dry at a certain point. That can only last for so long. So even for a school like mine, where we have that supportive community and we have the administration that's doing everything right, money catches up at some point.
Absolutely.
So that's really what's happening, and I firmly believe that if every other school in CPS had what my school had and had what the rest of the state had, that we would all be performing like Lincoln Park High School.
Yeah, we too often you find these issues along the lines of race and class, and we, as you said, every child has potential. I often say that every child has the potential to change the world, and if we take that view as a nation, not just just not Chicago, but if we take that view as a nation, we would all be much better off in every field. But that's just me. I'm just, as I say, I'm a little strange. All right, let's. So we discussed a little bit about the revenue and the spending already. So we'll just hop down to what. So what do they plan to cut? If they're first of all, how much of a cut are they talking about cutting? How much are they talking about cutting? And
they're cutting cutting $700 million out of the budget. That's a whole lot.
Wow.
Yeah,
So go ahead.
That's going to equate to I think they said the average is 26% of each individual school's budget will be cut, and that can go up to 30% for specific schools.
Mm-hmm.
That's like I said in the article. Think about 1 of every 4 teachers just going away. Class sizes are going to be going up, and so
yeah,
it's ridiculous.
That is absolutely frustrating. So so is there a plan to make up these shortfalls? I mean, you said that you're in a community that has the resources to make up shortfalls in some areas, but not everybody has those opportunities, obviously.
Well,
so is there any kind of plan to try to make up the shortfalls, I guess, within individual schools or within the CPS itself?
Well, I mean, like I said, and you just stated, some schools can't and some schools are able to. My school, it's in a wealthy neighborhood, and so a lot of the people there try to pitch in with some money here and there, and that has really I've noticed really smoothened out the school year for a lot of the students. It's made some of the cuts that have already been implemented a little less painful. But then it's not about even if a community wants to help. It's about can they help?
Agreed.
Yeah. So a lot of these neighborhoods, they're just it's just desolate. You can't. You have families that can't support. They can't support themselves. So how in the world would they be going on to support a school that should be supported by the state because they're paying their taxes?
Mm-hmm.
So every parent wants the best for their kids, and
Yeah.
but money is power, and that's what we don't have. And so therefore we don't have any power here.
Mhm.
It's 1.1 billion. That's the budget hole that CPS is facing in the fiscal year 2016. That's a big
That
hole
is
to be.
huge.
That's a big hole to.
Wow.
You can't really patch that up.
No. There's
So
no spackling for that one. Yeah. Absolutely.
yeah, and so when I see this, I would think that with that big of a hole, that a governor even like Bruce Rasner would see, like, okay, we got an issue here. We need to fix this. But that's not the case, and he's just so separated from the issues and the people that I don't even know if he would be able to see that. I mean, this is a guy. He's making $58 million a year. That was from 2014 when he ran for election. He spent $37 million of that in politics. Making sure that he got the seat in governor.
Mhm.
He makes 60% of his income in capital gains. He's the chairman of a private equity firm, and he also has a charter school named after him, and he works in the Noble School charter system, which I believe now makes up 10% of Chicago public schools. So here he is with opposite interests. He has, he has reason to not fund us, because he wants to turn Chicago Public into a charter system where private entities have power over the students. So when we have these huge holes in the budget, we're not going to be seeing that covered by the state, when we have somebody at the top who it's in his best interest not to find a solution.
Mm-hmm. It seems like, from my point of view, it seems like he got the job to punch a hole in this system. And with
Absolutely, and I know that there was. Yeah, sorry, I didn't hear you.
No, it's okay. Yeah, it seems like he wanted to punch a hole in the system in order for himself, for his own benefit and benefit of the people around him and people in his social economic strata. But that's just spitballing, I guess. All right, let's. So, how do you see? I mean, I know you don't. You're in your particular space, but how do you see this impacting students and families for the short term and long term?
Well, it all comes down to money and what we're able to do. So if they're not getting this education, they're not going to be able to provide for their family or further themselves in the working world later on. They're just not going to be able to do that. And so here we are. We're bottlenecking them at the bottom, and that the bottom is education, because that sets them up for the rest of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we're bottlenecking them here, then they're not going to be able to move up Chicago's caste system. They're just not. So here we are. We're keeping them at a certain place in the world, and we're not giving them the American dream of being able to pick yourself up by your bootstraps. If you don't have any bootstraps, then how the hell are you supposed to get to that point? And so yeah, sorry, we have a little bit of lag between me and you, so it's like I start talking, you start talking. Sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. We'll work it out. All right, yeah, and we that's part of the reason why we started the Louisa Project 2027. I mean, there's a little selfish motivation to try to make things better for my daughter when she gets older, but at the same time, the things that make the world better for her have the opportunity to make the world better for a whole lot of other people. So it's the impacts are ridiculous. And as you said, education is the key, whether it's leading you to entrepreneurship, whether it leads you to a job. Just the fact that you have an education means you're gonna be more likely to have a job.
Yeah, precisely. And then and so where these jobs are going, they're going out to the suburbs. They're going out to the places that are getting the education that they're going out to places where they're provided education. We've seen through since the 60s, there's especially in the 70s through 90s, we've seen a hollowing out of the city, where people have run out to the suburbs with their wealth, and they've burned a trail behind them. It's just desolate. I mean, I live on the south side of Chicago, which is generally the side with less opportunities, but I go to the school on the north side. That's a 20-mile ride, and I notice it every day as I'm taking this train to my school. You see the change in opportunity. You go and seeing whole blocks where there's just no buildings because it's just had to be raised. Where there's one house on a block, and where there's yards with weeds, and schools are closed, and project towers have been torn down. You see that on one end of the city, and then you go to the other, and then there's a whole lot of wealth, people with opportunity, people that can they want for their family, take them on vacations, provide a sound education, and decide where that education comes from. It's just not. There's no equality, and so we see these areas where all of the wealth has been taken out and pushed out to the suburbs. So that's where all the business is going, because that's where the people are being educated. They don't. Yes. We're becoming a more service oriented economy now, and so if you can't, we're not based on that hard labor, do stuff with your hands anymore, and that's the sort of work that you don't need an education for. So we really need to be providing an education for ourselves. And if we're not going to be competitive in the state, and the state is therefore not going to be competitive, because Chicago Public Schools is 20% of the state's students. And so if we're not a competitive state, we're falling behind the rest of the country, and the whole country is falling behind the rest of the world in education. We have countries like Germany. Not even the best developed countries. We have every other country has figured out a way to provide free education to its students, and here the United States is, still requiring students and communities to pay, and then behind that is Illinois, where the state isn't doing anything.
Right. Yeah. It's so frustrating. I mean, you see it over and over again. You see states taking money out of education. There's plenty of other places they can take money out of, and let me stop there. There's no need to take money out. Okay, if you need to raise taxes to make up these shortfalls, even if it's a regressive VAT tax, do something. Don't let these kids just fall to the wayside.
I have an idea. Well, if we need to raise taxes, let's raise it on the people with the most income, the highest income earners in the state of Illinois. Yeah, they're paying 9.8% in state income taxes, where the middle area of people, they're paying 11.3% in income taxes, and then the people with the lowest income are paying 12%. So let's raise that highest income to the place where the lowest income, isn't that disgusting?
That is so regressive. Oh my God! I thought the VAT tax that I'm just speculating was regressive, but that's horrible. That is ridiculous. How long has it been like that?
Gosh, I don't know, but I mean, we've talked about how Illinois has been for decades, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's always been like that. And especially when we have a Republican in power, and we have a system set up where Springfield is separated from the rest of the state and its interests. I wouldn't be surprised if it's been that way for a long, long time.
Wow. That is super regressive. That doesn't make any sense at all. Yeah.
Well, it does when you have people at the top who have control,
who make the decision,
and the people at the bottom don't have any sort of say. That's when it makes sense.
Well,
it shouldn't make sense, but it
Illinois.
does.
But corruption is what we do. Okay. All right. So, how does it affect? Well, I guess we talked about that a little bit. How does that? I guess businesses are leaving town, but the businesses that aren't leaving the city, how do you feel they're impacted?
Well, businesses go where they have they have the supplies to run their business, and then they go to places where people are going to be buying their products. You know, that's just basic economics.
Yeah.
So you have a part of the city that doesn't have the people to work the jobs, and then you have part of the city that doesn't have the people to pay for the services or whatever good they're selling.
Yeah.
They're not going to go there. So we have a lopsided cluster of economic activity in the city, where on the north side we have all the businesses. You know, we have high-end stores, and then, you know, on the south side you have nothing. It's you know, you have empty factories, you have old junkyards. That's the sort of stuff, you know.
Yeah.
Gosh, I can't count the number of high-end posh little stores that I see on my way to this. I see on my way to the metro in the morning. You know, I see, you know, it's you know, I see like little tiny like small run businesses that are, you know, like making high-end clothes, high-end beauty products, and that sort of stuff. That's the sort of stuff that's in the neighborhood where I go to school.
Yeah.
And and then when you're going through a lot of these neighborhoods on the south side, there's nothing. It's desolate, and so that you can just see the economic impact when you go from one end of the city to the other.
It's extremely frustrating. There's no need for the richest, most powerful country in the world to leave people behind like this. There's absolutely no need for it. It's immoral, amoral. It's fiscally, it's not sound. It has horrible economic impacts for everyone. You know, even if you're rich, you could probably be a little more rich if people had more money at the bottom. I'm just putting that out there. You know, it just doesn't make any sense on any level unless you just want to be cruel. You know? Yeah,
I mean, maybe having all the guns in the world would have meant something at the turn of the century, because the world and its economic order. You were defined in that system based on how much military power you had. That's why a country like Great Britain was at the top, because they had the most and biggest guns.
Yeah, absolutely.
But now, after the Second World War, we have a world that's increasingly based its success upon education and its ability to go far in the world of economics and competition. Now, we're not setting up ourselves to be competitive when we're not giving our children the education that they need to contribute to that system. We're falling behind just because of that.
Yeah.
So and I kind of I feel like this is another important thing to talk about. Why I feel like there's just this there's this hollowing out of the education in Chicago too. I mean, we have Chicago, I think, as the whole country knows, has always been a very segregated city, and it has been since, you know, the 50s and 60s, and you know, there's been white flight, and so in the south side we have
migration had a huge impact on that. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Exactly, and so we have this small pocket of student of white community on the south side. It's largely Irish, and but they all send their kids to private schools, and so here they are not contributing to the system because, you know, I know a lot of good people, you know, but there's a lot of it comes down to just having a little bit of racist tendencies, and so we have, you know, sending to these schools where they can segregate by choice, and so therefore they're you know, they're opting out of the system, and that's making it worse for everybody else who either chooses to stay in, like my family has, or just can't, you know,
can't leave. Yeah.
It all comes down to that ability, like a lot of these more white and more wealthy families have. It all comes down to their ability, and so if we're not all in it together, then somebody's going to be suffering. That's how it usually goes.
That's what it always boils down to, especially with education now. It's resources. You know, there was a time. Well, I guess there was a time where you know, at least you had a shot. You know, if you got a little education, at least you had a shot. But it seems that there's been a concerted effort from the conservative side, I must say, to take that shot away from as many people as possible. And unfortunately, those are people. The majority of those folks are people of color. But at the same time, but there's a lot of white folks that suffer. I mean, look at places like Appalachia. I mean, there's places out there that are just suffering, and we've got this class-based system. It just so happens there's more people of color at the bottom. Okay, not just so happens, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, exactly.
So all these people of color at the bottom, and all these white people at the bottom who are suffering, who can't get out either. And having the lowest, social mobility in the developed world is ridiculous.
And then they're tricked into voting for the person who's working against them. I don't have them. With the 2014 elections, I don't have the map pulled up here, but you look at Chicago, and then the rest of the state, it's very white and very conservative. And so you see, it's Chicago. Chicago is the one blue place where our former governor Pat Quinn won, and then the rest of the state went red and went for Rasner. And those communities aren't always well-to-do either. But the thing is, they're at least getting their education given to them fairly. They're at least getting a proportionate amount. Where we're not, we're getting 15% when we're supposed to be getting 20% of state funding.
I wonder who's getting that other 5%. I'll be curious to know that. But okay, we've talked about the issues. Let's do a little brainstorming, me and you. Let's see if we can toss some ideas across the internets. And what kind of ideas do you have that may help this system? I mean, other than give me my damn 5%. I know that would be a great start. But what kind of ideas do you think that you and perhaps some of your classmates may have about fixing these problems?
Well, and I'll talk about specifically my classmates later, because they're doing some good stuff. But the biggest thing is that people need to vote, and that's what we didn't do in 2014. We had a record low turnout year. That was a record turnout year across the country, and Illinois was no exception. And that's, I think, why we have a Republican governor now. Just nobody voted. And so
Democrats didn't help with that, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm just thinking, and it's like, if we can't do anything if we're just letting the rich and the powerful run rampant, then they're going to do what's best for them. And if we're not making our voices heard, then nothing's going to change. And that's so in 2014, that's exactly what happened. And so that's, before anything else changes, we need to become a more politically active community. And I'm not saying people need to be going out into the street and protesting every day. I'm just saying you need to make use of your constitutionally given rights to vote. That's the first thing you need to do, and we need to make sure that the people who are theoretically electing to these positions, and that are theoretically representing us, that they're actually doing the job and representing the people. So, and until that happens, I mean, I don't see it getting any better. I see at best, I see things staying the way they are in specific sectors, but things aren't going to be getting better for the people of Illinois when you have a Republican who's trying to cut corners every which way. So, I would like to see us get 20 for 20. I'd like to see our schools pull back in and become places where educations which provide opportunities for the future. I'd like to see them become places for that, but that's not going to happen until we're making our voices heard and telling people downstate that they need to be doing their jobs and representing us. Now, there's a group called the Chicago Student Union, which is fairly active among the magnet schools in our city, that are going out and protesting in front of City Hall and McCormick Center, those places, and are fighting for everyone in the city. Those who don't necessarily have a voice because of the oppressed state that they're in, with lacking education. So we have students who have taken to the streets in some cases to protest and try to make their voices heard and advocate for the whole city. And so I completely support that. But the change comes in two parts. You need to have, it's like peanut butter and jelly. If you have if you have protests, you also need the action downstate too. The protest makes the issue visible, but without people making use of their constitutional right to vote, only so much is going to happen.
Definitely have to have a plan. And I think also young citizen journalists like you are very important to that effort as well, because people have to know, and they also need to know where the sources are, and they need to know who's on their side, who's not on their side. And if everything happens in a silo in Springfield and all you get is what comes out the other end, that's a problem, and as you said, that's part of being more politically active, keeping an eye on folks and making sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, not just the governor, but from your local alderman on up to the governor, and people need to pay attention. And I get it. If people who have, poverty breeds hopelessness. It really, that's the number one product of poverty is hopelessness. Right. So that, this system's not going to help me. I don't care. I'm just trying to live my life. And it happens. I grew up in Jersey City, New Jersey. We weren't, I'm not going to tell a lie, say I was poor. Right. We did all right. We were, I guess we were solidly middle class, you would say. Right. And I went to private schools. But I mean, I've still lived on these same streets with these other kids that had less, and it's not easy. People are quick to say, well, just get a job, or if it's too bad, if it's that bad, just move. But that's not a solution. It's not a solution. I mean, you could, if you have the means to move, okay, I guess that's it. But what about the people that can't move, like we were talking about earlier? So I think, as you said, that's getting more politically active, making sure that people are doing what they're supposed to be doing, and making sure the money is divvied out at least proportionately. At the very least, if not by need, and that's fair, because we as a society we need to take care of one another, no matter what color we are, no matter what age we are. We need to take care of each other. Yeah, and sorry, I went on a rant.
No, absolutely, you're completely right. I don't have the study with me right now, but I was looking at it. Maybe you can link it in the show notes. But it showed that Illinois ranked dead last for support given to communities in need in regards of education. Wow. So this is talking about communities that are wealthy are actually getting less support from the state to better their kids, because they're already getting whatever they need from the community. So a state like Illinois is giving the least to the poor. To the poor and low-income communities, and then giving the most to the high communities. I'm not good at explaining this, obviously, but I'll link it to you, and you can maybe even put the graphic up, because it's bad. It's bad.
Mm-hmm. Wow, man, Chicago is struggling. All right, and education is so foundational to society. It's not just, how long before it becomes escape from New York? Schools disappear and other public services disappear, and you just have a mess. Okay, that's just me. Okay, here we go.
You're absolutely right. It's just everything is becoming hollowed out, and we have. I see it in city services too. It's just there's priorities, and there's rampant corruption, and it plagues every level of the system. This has nothing to do with education, but it's just talking about how things get allocated. I remember we had a blizzard back a year or two ago, and we had like 3 feet of snow or something ridiculous, and it took a week. And not even a week. It took 4 days for city services to come and shovel out the streets down on the south side, but on the north side, they had the alleys and the streets ready and plowed the night after. It's that sort of stuff. It's just I bet
they laid salt beforehand too, and they did everything they could to help that part of town, which is
precisely. But that's just that's the sort of stuff that happens. So yeah.
I lived in Egypt. It's a third world country analogy. I lived in Egypt for 5 years. Right, my family was with me for 4, and you would see streets getting new pavement, new tarmac, or whatever you call it, more getting the black stuff. I forget what you call it. Anyway, you get it. The street was getting redone, and it was so sporadic, right? And I talked to one of my Egyptian friends. I was like, why is that? It's somebody rich just moved on the street.
Money is power, is it?
Money is power. I was like, what? That is so logical, but sad. You know, I was like, why did that not even occur to me? And it's just sad that, you know, you just take care of these spaces where the rich and powerful stay, and you forget about everybody else. And that's, you know, that happens in places that's not supposed to happen here. I recognize that it has always happened here, but we're supposed to do better, not be better. Yeah, we're supposed to do better.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think this is also ties to why my school is at least doing a little bit better than the rest of the system. You know, my school is very diverse. It takes students from all over the city and puts them in one place. So I go to school with, you know, a lot of people from low income, but then at the same time I'm going to school with people whose parents are in the top 1% of the city, you know, who are literally in the top 10 richest people in the city of Chicago, like that sort of stuff. Wow. So when you have people who, I mean, their parents take care of this sort of stuff, and you know, I know, of course, I can't, you know, pull any sort of sources, but you know, I know that at my sister's school, she also goes to another magnet school in the city. She goes again with some of the very richest people in the city, and it's a higher density of very rich parents, and they take care of my sister's school fine. You know, they when CPS announced that it had to cut back all schools funding, I think every school got something like 3.2% of their budget cut. Not nearly what's going to be happening next year, but so the community, the wealthy parents came in and they said, okay, we're going to take care of this, and they raised all the funds they needed so that they didn't have to fire any teachers or anything for the rest of the year. Mind you, too, that my sister's school building they're getting an additional building put on. They're having a second building constructed right now. I think they're going to have a cafe in it or something like that too. It's like, you know, unnecessary stuff. They're having a new parking lot built. So while a lot of other schools are saying, okay, how can we avoid cutting this or that teacher? How can we avoid closing this or that class? You know, we have a school who's you know, has wealthy parents and students at those schools, and you know, they're able to cover it for them. So yeah, money is power, and you're able to see its effects in the disparities of the schools.
Yeah, I'm in Alabama, and I work in Huntsville, Alabama, and Huntsville is like an island in a sea of educational blight, I guess. Alabama is just not doing well, especially K through 12 education. But because of all, there's a lot of money, a lot of educated people here in Huntsville. Because of that, it's matter of fact, it has the highest concentration of postgraduate degrees of anywhere in the country, because of Redstone Arsenal and all the military stuff that's going on in town, and all the businesses around that. So there's plenty of money here. So and because of that, the school system, the Huntsville City Schools, they cleaved off from the counties and from the county school system just because they had those kind of resources, and they do, and these are really, really good schools. My daughter's school is right across the street from our house. We're right across the street from our subdivision, and they just built it. I think the school's like 4 years old. Big, beautiful building, nice design. But the school before we moved to this area of this part of Huntsville 2 or 3 years ago, we were living in another area of just south of Huntsville, and that school was a really good elementary school. It was a great school, but it was in an old rundown building, you know, and you can just see, and it's a 7 mile difference, 7 miles, but it's a difference between an area that has money and an area that doesn't have money. You know, and it's frustrating. Yeah, I took advantage of the system. I did. If that makes me a bad liberal or bad progressive, I'll take that hit. But I think we just need to do better.
Precisely. You know, and talking about what I see in my neighborhood, you know, it's like I said, Chicago is very segregated, and therefore the opportunities are segregated as well.
Absolutely.
my neighborhood is separated by 2 sets of train tracks. You know, on one side you have utter poverty and just families that can't support their children and get them an education. Then you have on the side of the other set of train tracks, it's okay. First of all, it's literally on top of a hill,
wow.
and there's mansions on top of that hill. And then between, there's this small area where people of different races finally are able to get along. That's where I live. And on one side, you got people, you know, with utter poverty, and the other side with, you know, ultra wealth. And then in the middle, you have people who cooperate. And so, and it's just, you know, seeing what one side of the train tracks literally has in terms of schooling, and what the other side of the train tracks has in terms of schooling. You just can't compare them at all. And it's extremely sad, you know, that things have to change like that over short distances, and that people can't manage or can't find it in themselves to, you know, love thy neighbor.
Yeah, when I grew up in Jersey City, my groups I hung out with was so multicultural: black, white, Hispanic, Asian. I mean, it was one of those, I guess you would say, a sweet cultural and class sweet spot, where a lot of people from a lot of different walks of life came together. And that was such a big part of my growing up in education, that it seems like your kids are missing out if they don't get to meet people from other places, and people that speak other languages, and it's people that do things differently. There's just so much we can learn from one another. It just seems like it's not just selfish, it's dumb. It's really dumb, because there's so much that can be learned, and so much so many positive things can come from it.
I've been lucky myself to have those, you know, cultural opportunities. You know, my school pulls from every end of the city, and you know, there's not so many schools where you can, you know, have in a class, you know, 4 different languages going off at the same time, you know, after class hours. It's that sort of stuff. And I try not to forget what I have, because you know, it's made me all the better for, you know, because of it. You know, I'm just a better person. And I think if everybody had those opportunities, that a lot of the issues that we see today also would, you know, be non-existent. So yeah. All
right, so let me I'm gonna crown you right now. I'm gonna give you my king of the day question, right? If you were the king of Chicago, well, okay, we're gonna make you the governor. All right, Bruce Brown is out. He's gone. We're gonna make you the governor. you're the king of Illinois. I mean, if you're king for a day, what are the 3 solutions that you would put forward to fix these problems?
Man, well,
no pressure.
Like I said before, we're gonna get everybody registered to vote, because that's incredibly important. We're gonna make sure that everybody has that opportunity. You know, make sure that everybody knows how to vote, where to vote, when to vote. Because that's how, after my day is up, that's how we're going to elect a governor that's representative of the people. I think that I think I would go on a corruption. I think I'd go and get rid of a whole lot of corruption. Just go on a corruption ending rampage, you know, because I think there's a lot of waste.
It's gonna be a long day, huh? It's gonna be a long day.
Sun up to sundown, you know.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
There's a lot of corruption that I think we don't see in this state, because there's just there's so little oversight. You know, people aren't watching them, so they're able to, you know, put a little money to this and put a little money to that over here. So you know, that money. So the reason why I think they say that we don't have this money is because it's going to secret places. You know, a dark corner where nobody finds it. You know, and you know, perfect example. Our governor, Rod Blagojevich, who I don't know if you heard of. He went
the hair.
Yeah,
the hair.
Yeah, when Obama obviously became president, he was an Illinois senator before that, and so this guy, real bright guy, he tried to sell his seat in the Senate for something like $200,000. So it's that sort of stuff. Yeah, it wasn't taxpayer money in that case, but that's a perfect example of the sort of stuff that people would try to get away with in this state. So yeah, try to eliminate at least some of the corruption. Maybe cut a little bit of crud off the top. At least get started.
Okay. Yeah, I hear you.
So and prioritize education, not just for CPS, but for the whole state in Illinois. So I'm not saying that the rest of the state has it great. I'm just saying that CPS has a hell of a lot worse. Okay.
Yeah.
So we have. So if we were to at least prioritize it at the levels which the rest of the country did, at least give them education where we're not worried about really just being starved of education. That would be nice. But if we were able to make it a top priority like the rest of the world does, because the rest of the world has figured out that education means success and prosperity, I think we'd be a lot better off. But people are too focused on themselves and short-term rewards, which come in the form of lowering or completely eliminating income taxes and getting more of those tax benefits by making sure that a place like Chicago doesn't get its 20% to 20%.
Yeah, that 5%, boy. We're gonna find that 5%. We'll find, so that's gonna be your first mission. Find that 5%. we'll stick it under corruption, right? So, all right. So your three things were register everybody to vote and get people politically active, corruption, and prioritize education. I like those three. Those are really good. Let's do corruption first, though. That's just as your king for the day advisor. Knock out corruption first. That's your 8 o'clock. Knock out corruption.
It knocks the rest together,
and then go to registration to prioritize education. But all right, do you have any last words, Hank, before I cut you loose, so you can go on the rest of your day?
Well, we talked about it a bunch of times now, but really, if we're going to see any change in the system, we're going to have to be active. I know Ben and Noah and Nisi. They always talk about on their shows. They always talk about prioritizing, taking advantage of what we're given, and that's voting. And if without that, we're going to be we're setting ourselves up for failure, because the people at the top, they don't have the same interests as us, and so we need to be fighting for ourselves, because we're the bottom 99% or whatever it is, and so we have the power, but we're not exercising it. So if we're going to see change, we have to make it. It's not going to come from the people in Springfield.
Yeah,
that's my thing.
So you got to make sure the people that go into Springfield know who put them there. All right. So, all right.
Exactly.
So, well, we knocked that out. So if anybody wants to get in contact with you, how do they get in contact with you?
Well, I mean, of course, Twitter. I didn't like it before, but I'm having to start liking it now, because that's what the political, making a change world uses. So you can follow me on Twitter, Hank Jirousek. Somebody will have to spell that out for you in the show notes. Jirousek. That's my last name. So you can follow me on there. Other than that, read my articles, and throughout the summer I'll have a lot more time coming out of school in 2 weeks. So I'll be trying to be doing a lot more of that and making my change those ways.
Good. Looking forward to that. All right. Let me see. Make sure we got everything covered, just because I don't want to shortchange you. Okay. Any future plans besides running for governor in a couple of years?
Well, I mean, getting myself into college, well, I got that coming up since I'm a junior. So, but in terms of summer plans, make sure making sure I'm taking advantage of what I've got, and trying to extend what I've got to other people.
Okay,
that's what I want to do, and so
that sounds like a good. It sounds like a good opening speech for when you were announced your run for governor. All right, so Hank, I like your style. I like everything you're doing. Just keep it up. If you know anybody out there in the Chicago public school system, in the teachers union, that wants to come on my fledgling show and check us out, please let me know. And also community colleges. I think they're the linchpin. If you know any community colleges that want to come talk to me, please let them know, and just tell them to hit me up on Twitter. I think that's it. And thank you so much for your time. And I guess that's it. I'm gonna do my outro with my little.
Thanks for having me on, by the way. It's a pleasure to talk about these things. I mean, honestly, they don't get talked about enough. And
I agree. I think we're losing focus. I mean, right now everything's focused on Bernie, Hillary, and the Donald. But I think we've definitely we need to put some sunlight on education, because we're failing. We're not just failing these kids. We're failing our nation. We're failing our future, and that's unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable. All right. Well, again, thank you, Hank. Next time you write something, anything education related, come see me. All right. And thank you again. I'm gonna do my little outro. This was the Louisa Project 2027. Our interview with Hank Jirousek. He wrote an article called "The Plight of the Chicago Public School Systems," the CPS for those of you who are in the know. So it's a great article. Go on to progressivearmy.com and check him out and read his other stuff. You can check me out on progressivearmy.com. I'm Mike Redwine. We're gone. Thank you.
Months now has begun.